Yeah, hello friends, this is Tabish Mendi, and today we are going to look into the multi-tier app, means how we can build multi-tier application and what could be the architecture. So if you see here, I just design a very high level architecture of how multi-tier means application um talk to each other. So whenever So this is the overall architecture. Like we have a browser here. You can see we have an nginx. There's a front end and we have a back end. And the back end is have two components like the Postgres and the Redis. So what actually all these components are and how they are interacting to each other. So we are going to see. So whenever you go to the browser and type uh, google.com suppose. So what used to happen that when you're typing google.com, so the layer which you can see, it's kind of a reverse proxy layer. In case here we are using nginx here. So what this nginx used to do, it will abstract your front end and back end layer, and the user only can communicate with the nginx layer. So because of that one, these front end, back end, and all the database which are has been used inside your application are kind of secure. Means no third party or no other user can directly interact to these layers. So nginx is the layer where user used to talk to the front end, and the front end used to talk to the back end, and what are the applications which you're using, uh, you are going to see into the browser. So nginx here is kind of act as a reverse proxy, where you type the url, and based on your url the request go to the front end, and then back to according to the api which has been called. uh, that API get called, and from the API, if we are using the database, so it used to fetch all those data from the database and revert back to the backend, and then the information which you are asked for, you're going to see into your browser. Yes. So this is the overall architecture of it's a three-layer architecture which we can use. Here we are using the front end, we're using the back end. Inside the back end also we are using how backend API is communicating with the database. And also we are using the redis. Suppose redis we are basically used for the caching purpose, so that for the frequent query which you are repeatedly asking from the database user. So we are not going to asking on the database, but we are caching into the Redis so that our the latency of our application becomes reduced, and it is and the application giving good experience to the end user. So this is the overall architecture we are using in our multi-tier applications. So we are going to see similar kind of application how we are building. If you see, I have prepared one code snippet over here. If you see, we have a one backend code structure, we have a front end, and we have nginx. The similar kind of architecture which we have seen over here. So what this backend is doing, it's a very basic code I have prepared. Uh, what this code is basically using, it is making a connection to our Postgres SQL, and for that one we are giving the host name, port number, database name, user, and password. So these are the basic details which are required to for the connection to the Postgres SQL. And these are some endpoints I have created. like for the checking the health status of our API for this health check. This particular endpoint is retrieving the data from the database. So if we are for the first time, if we are retrieving the database, so it will directly retrieve from the database. But for the first second time, if you are retrieving it, so it will not going to make a connection and retrieve all the database. It will directly uh, uh, we are caching all those data. Then after second term or third term, if we are asking, so we are directly retrieve from the redis. So that's the advantage. So this endpoint is used to retrieve the data from the database. This endpoint we have used to add a student. When I show you the front end part, then you will get to know how this API getting called. So this is one, it making the connection, and then what are the student name and the student email we are passing. Those student and those student details getting inserted into the database. And this endpoint basically we are using to modify the details of the student. So based on the student ID, we are updating the details. And again we are deleting the student based on the student ID. So this API uh, is getting used for deleting the student. So this is the backend code basically. Front end code we are uh, using, and we have used React for that one. So we have like index.js file and all the logic and the front end we can see over here. So once I show you how the pages look like, then you will able to get it. Uh, the basic I'm creating this video to just to show how this three tier architecture basically built, and with the help of Docker Compose. So for every layer, if you see in the backend itself, we have created one Docker file. So we are creating the image for every layer, like the backend layer. Similarly, for the front end layer, we are also creating one Docker file over here. If you see, and this nginx also, because when you we are exposing our front end and back end through the nginx. The user cannot directly come and call the front end. We are abstracting the front end, and we are exposing the nginx only. So we are using the Docker image for the nginx itself. So we are using the nginx 1.27 Alpine image over here, and this is the configuration file of the nginx. So what we are doing here, uh, we are exposing. So I just, as I told you, with the help of nginx only, we are exposing our front end and back end. So if you see, so if user uh, giving the local host name, so it will directly call this front end 3000 port number, and the front end part you can see. So all those front end code will be exposed to this endpoint, and slash API slash the endpoint if you give, then the backend code will be called. So in this way we are exposing our front end and back end with the help of nginx. So this is the code, and this is the Docker Compose file which we have created. So what it is doing, it is building the image of nginx, and this nginx port is available on port 8080. And this nginx is depend on front end and back end, as I already show in the architecture. This nginx is depend on the front end and back end. So that's what I have written. And this front end, we are building the image from this Docker file, if you see. And the port, we are doing the port mapping, like this front end will be exposed to 3000 ports, and this front end, it depends on the back end, because the front end, what are the code, what are the UI we have building, it is ultimately calling the backend API. over here. And after that, we are calling the we are building the image of backend, and this with the help of this Docker file. And this port is 5000, and because the backend code is calling the database server, so we are making the environment variable and we are passing the details of our connection, like the host port, our database name, username, password, redis host name, and redis port. And this backend is depend on the Postgres and redis, as showed here. This backend is depend on Postgres and redis. That's why we are maintaining this depends. And we are creating the image of Postgres SQL, and what are the requirement there we are exposing as an environment variable over here. And similarly with the redis, and we are using the volumes over here. If you see volumes pg data, so these volumes we are using, the volume basically we are using because suppose volumes is nothing like it's kind of hard disk we are attaching to the SQL database. Suppose some of the details which a user want to feed in or insert some data, so those data has to be saved somewhere, and it has to be persistent. Persistent means suppose you are using your application and you close your session, and again you are coming back to your UI, so those data should be persistent which you have saved. So that's why we are using this volumes. This volumes save your data. If you're coming after 10 days of time or 1 month back, or one back after 1 month also, so the data which you have saved, it should be there. That's why we are using volume saving. If you are not using it, then in the single session it will be available after 5 minutes. If you are coming, so those data will get lost. So that's the reason we are using volumes over here. Now we are building this three-layer architecture back in front end and database with the help of Docker Compose. So for that purpose, let me open my terminal. uh, Here is we will write Docker Compose up minus D in the detached mode, in the background, and build. And before that, we need to open our Docker Compose, Docker desktop. Let me see if any images is already running, so we need to delete it for this demonstration purpose. Just give me some time. Let's our Docker desktop starts running. Right. So let me delete what I already have. Then just give me a second, guys. Okay. Now in my machine, no image, no containers is running. So we are building our image from the scratch. So let's build this. It will take 2-3 minutes of time, guys. So once all these images, backend, frontend, nginx, postgres, sql, uh, these images will get built, so our UI will be ready. Then I will show you how it are interacting with each other, how these layers are interacting with each other. So based on your internet, it will take some time. Give me some time. So it is because our images depends on this Postgres and Redis, so it is pulling those images first from the Docker hub. So once it get pulled, then we can test our UI. It will take some time. Just wait for another 2 to 3 minutes. Within, I guess, 2 to 3 minutes, all the images will be up and running, and we can see once it will get run, we can see over here. So yeah, the Redis get pulled. It is Postgres is taking little bit time. Yeah, it will get some time. Maybe another 2 to 3 minutes. Our application will be up and running. Okay. So yeah, our rest of the backend and front end, I guess, also exporting. Front end is exporting. We, if you- yeah, our services is see it is up and running now. If you see our container is running over here. So our nginx is up and running, front end is up and running, back end is running, Redis and Postgres. Now open the browser and just see, type localhost. So what is happening? We are not directly communicating with the front end with the help of nginx. Nginx is seeing in the configuration file what is the UI port number. It is redirecting to the that one. And now see, uh, if you are we can see Alice, Bob from where this because in our SQL query, if you see, we have only two, Alice Johnson and Bob Smith. Alice Johnson and Bob Smith, but from where this Tavish Mehndin and Peter Parker is coming. So before demonstrating this video, I was adding the student, my name and Peter Parker. I added couple of days back because since I'm using volumes, so that's the reason it is still showing me. But suppose I am not using the volumes in my Docker Compose, these volumes, if I didn't use it anywhere. So because of if you suppose if you I didn't use this volume, then only two records will be shown to me, Alice and Bob. Because I'm using the volumes, we are storing into the kind of hard disk. That's why after 2 days also I can see what are the details I added 2 days back. I can see now. So suppose I want to add new student, so I click on that one, enter the name, suppose drama, and give some id rama@gmail.com at got added. You can see. So what is happening behind the scene? nginx is making a API call to our backend service, and from that backend service, it is making a call to our Postgres SQL, and those it making a call, uh, it making a call to our this backend API which we have created. Add a student. This is we are passing the student name and storing it into our database, as that's what we can see over here. So we are not directly communicating with the front end and back end, rather we are communicating with the help of engines. So that's only the demonstration I wanted to give you. I hope uh, you will learn something from this video. Thank you so much.